Today's video lesson, we're going to talk just a little bit more about our measuring devices, specifically our some of our rulers and rules, squares, tape measures, and so forth, just so you can further hone in your ability to read these measuring devices. Now, in our last video lesson, we took the paper folded inch and we broke that down. So today I'm going to kind of go back through. We've got a couple of other things here. So we have a standard ruler here, and we actually have two scales on this ruler. So you need to be familiar with these. So notice and look at the way I'm holding it right now. On the top, I'm going to put this a little bit closer to you. On the top, you will see we've got divisions here. This is a 12-inch ruler. Our inch is up here on the top. That's what we call a U.S. customary unit. The U.S. customary unit is the inch. So this is a 12-inch rule. It's broken up into 12 inches, and each of those inches is broken up to some type of fraction of an inch, which is where we're going. Now, if you look at the bottom side of this, that is divided up into 30 units, and that is actually the metric scale. So that is a metric scale instead. So each one of these, let me see if I can get this a little closer to you so that you can kind of see this here. So turn this over for the metric. So, all right, notice here the units on this are the centimeters. So I've got 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, so on and so forth. Those are all the centimeters. That's the metric system. We won't use that metric system very often. Now, if I divide, you'll see that from 0 to 1 centimeter, that centimeter is divided up into 10 spaces as well. And that is, so each one of those smaller tick marks is what we call the millimeter. So we've got the ability to read centimeters or millimeters with the metric scale on this particular ruler. And we would say that 1 centimeter is the same as 10 millimeters. Or if I am right here, let me just randomly put my finger right here at 3.5 centimeters. 3.5 centimeters is the same as 35 millimeters. That is the metric scale. However, for us in our wood shop and when we're woodworking, everything we're really doing is based on the inch, or the U.S. customary unit. So we're going to keep that with this. Now, as I look at this ruler and I count the divisions of the inch, so remember I said in the last video, we've got to kind of know how many divisions there are first before we can say anything as far as what number is going to be in the denominator and determine what fraction. So if I'm real quick looking at this, I can see that this ruler here is divided into 32 seconds, so or 32 segments. So this ruler has is a 32 scale, or a 1/32 scale. Let's compare that for a minute with our tri-squares. So here's one of our tri-squares that we use out in the shop. Again, notice the divisions of the inch on this. If I start at the fence and I count over, so the fence is 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. This is broken up into 8 divisions of the inch. So this measuring device, our tri-square, is what we call a 1/8 scale. So I've got a 1/8 scale here. This is going to be a little easier to read because there's not as many divisions of the inch. And for a lot of what we do, 1/8 scale is probably going to be okay. So I can even really come down, and if you really think about this, even though it's only got 8 divisions, if my tick mark, if I'm measuring is somewhere like halfway, I can kind of guesstimate what half of that space is, and half of an 1/8 is a 1/16. So I can still kind of read this down to 1/16, but I'm not as accurate as, say, this rule show you this rule here. Yep, this one's good. So here is this rule. This is a Stanley. This is one of the rules that comes off of our one of our combination squares. So, and I've got 4 different scales on this rule. So you'll notice I have an 8 scale. Again, count the tick marks, 0, 1, 2. There's 8 divisions of the inch, so that's the 8 scale up top. This down here is the 16th scale. I got 16 divisions of an inch there. If I flip this over, again, I have a what's referred to as the 16th scale up here. I got 16 divisions of the inch, and down here on the bottom, a lot smaller tick marks and so forth. That's the 32nd scale, 1/32nd scale, because that's divided up into 32 segments of the inch. And of course, you see right here on this end, it says 32, so that's our scale. I'm looking at this side. See how it says 8? That lets us know right there on here. Let's flip this back over, come to the other side. You can see that 16. That lets me know that's a 16 there, and that's a 16 there. Now, you got to pay attention to what your scale is on your measuring tools. So, and you got to know what the fraction is, how many times they're actually dividing up that fraction. So let's take a look here. This is my 25-foot lumpkin tape measure. So if I pull this out and I'm taking a look at that, notice here I have, and this particular tape measure is a 16th scale. Now, a lot of your tape measures are 16th scale. In general carpentry, if we're framing houses and so forth, a 16th is plenty. That gives us good enough accuracy. But our tape measures that we use in the wood shop, let me show you, these are our tape measures here that we use in the wood shop, these Stanley 16-footers. If we take a look at this, you'll notice these go down even further. These are 32nd. So if we counted the number of tick marks from 0 to 1, we would count 32. So this is a 32nd scale. Again, we're getting more accurate, a little bit more precise, but we're also having to read more divisions there of the inch as we go. And one of the reasons for this in fine woodworking, like if we're making cabinets or some other type of wood projects, we may need tighter tolerances and closer precision than what we would need, say, if we're framing a house with a 16th. So that's one of the reasons why we have this divided up even further. So if you're using these in the shop, no, you might need to be able to read these a little bit closer. So certainly what you would need here with this, where we're an 8th scale, or my tape measure here, which is a 16th scale, these are 32nd scale. So you've got more tick marks, and you have to kind of be aware of that when you count the tick marks and reduce those to the correct fraction. So those are some of our measuring tools. Now, the old school machinist in me also said, you know, this, I call this is a ruler. This is a 12-inch ruler. This is a 12-inch rule. And the reason it's called rule, because it's metal for one thing. You know, typically your metal rules tend to be a little bit more accurate, a little more precise than your plastic or wooden rulers. So if it's plastic or wood, it's called a ruler. If it's metal, it's called a rule. So, and your rules tend to be more accurate than your rulers. Again, we can get those, these are, you know, this one goes to our combination square. So, and that, of course, has the 4 different scales on it. So one of the reasons why it's called a combination square, because it does give you 4 different scales to work off with your rule there, that's 12-inch. But we can get 12-inch rules, we can get 24-inch rules, we can get 36-inch rules, or 3-foot, what's referred to as the yardstick. It's called a yardstick. It's made out of wood too. It's a yard, it's made out of wood, so it's a stick, yardstick. So those are just some of our measuring tools, but the most important, no matter what tool you're using to make your measurement, is you need to be able to read those fractions of an inch and know what scale it is, and then count those tick marks so that you can get the correct fraction and be able to read that, take your measurements and read your measurements within the 16th or the 32nd, whatever degree of accuracy you need depending on the project you're working on. So that is the video lesson today on our measuring devices and the different scales that we have when we're talking about divisions of an inch. Thanks for watching.